What's something you thought was common knowledge, but found out most people didn't know? Story 1. Being nice and patient will give you a bigger chance of getting a refund or a new of whatever is broken, than being angry and blaming the random worker. Story 2. A lot of media online. It's easy to see something being really popular online, and forget that it's only popular amongst people of a certain demographic or audience. Story 3. Police are allowed to lie to you, manipulate you and twist your words during interrogations. Most people assume there's some kind of rule in place, but once you waive your right to an attorney and agree to talk, they can basically do whatever they want short of a threat, innocent or not. Always lawyer up immediately. Story 4. Some people confuse the concepts of checking your oil level with changing your oil periodically. Both activities need to be done regularly. As in, why would I need to change the oil? The light hasn't come on yet. Story 5. Ammonia, bleach, poison gas. Don't combine the two, and pay attention to the active ingredients on cleaning products. Glass cleaner is often ammonia-based, while bathroom cleaners usually contain bleach, for example. Story 6. Mayonnaise does not have any dairy in it. Just because eggs are sold in the dairy section of the grocery store does not mean eggs are dairy products. They will not trigger your lactose intolerance because they have no lactose in them. Story 7. This may just be a local thing, but here goes. The reflectors in the roadway at night are white when you're going the right way, and red when you're not. Specifically, it's the reflectors that divide traffic lanes, white dashed lines. Story 8. Planning for expected things. Baby's gonna spit up. Often misses the burp cloth. Maybe tucking a spare t-shirt for mom in the bag might be a good idea. You would think ID cured cancer or something. Small boys find mud. Keeping wipes and clean clothes in a bag in the car isn't discovering a new species. It's just sensible planning for what probably will happen. And yes, this is why my purse is big enough for a pad and an extra pair of underwear in a plastic bag, because my uterus is vindictive and likes to surprise me. But the number of people who act like doing this is an absolutely amazing act of foresight is, well, it makes me worry for the future of the species. Story 9. Just because something is being talked about in mainstream news doesn't actually mean it's important. Likewise, just because something isn't being talked about in mainstream news doesn't mean it's not important. For examples of this, the news likes to talk an awful lot about pointless topics like Donald Trump's weirdly shaped when he played tennis at one time, or Joe Biden liking ice cream. These stories are not news. Meanwhile, there are very serious topics which get very little or no coverage at all, and when they do get covered, are often purposefully misrepresented. Mainstream news outlets are primarily just mouthpieces for propaganda. Much of the content that makes the rounds in social media isn't actually organic. There are companies out there paying for likes, upvotes and shares. Take Reddit for example. It's a well-known fact that many of the users on this website are bots, but most of us just upvote their reposts every single day, boosting their karma ranking, and then ignore the consequences of that. There's a lot of ideas which get exchanged on social media today which are not actually popular ideas, but they're getting thrown around and boosted because powerful players want the masses to either adopt those mindsets or believe information which may or may not be true. For whatever means, who knows? You are not immune to propaganda. In fact, you help spread it. If you start investigating the profiles of different users you come across, it's very easy to spot bots or paid trolls. I understand that I sound like a conspiracy theorist for sharing this information. Story 10. If you flick the bar sticking out of your steering wheel up, it causes the lights on the right side of your vehicle to flash, and if you flick it down, the left side flashes, so people know you're going to make a turn or change lanes. It even works in pickup trucks. Story 11. If interrogated by the police for a crime, ask for a lawyer and say nothing. You can be incredibly guilty, but without your testimony you have a chance to get off. You have rights. Story 12. That not everything you see on the news, in movies, or on TV is true. I'm pretty sure I figured that out as a kid, but Reddit has shown me that some people don't gain common sense with age. Story 13. Everything takes longer than you expect it to. If you think a task should take you an hour, allot yourself 90 minutes. Saves you a lot of stress and keeps you from chronically running late like most people seem to do. Story 14. In the US, a lot of hospital systems have financial aid based on income. I've gotten 60 to 100 of my bill wiped after insurance. Even while making a living wage, they still took off 60. Story 15. Many people can't picture faces in their heads, even of their loved ones. We don't fully remember faces but recognize them. I can tell you a few things about my mother's face, but I don't have a picture of it in my head. I am very fascinated by people who can do it though. Story 16. Washing your hands after the bathroom before eating. You can't eat at everyone's house, y'all, and don't eat unless you watch the cooking process. It's my first night working at a nursing home and this girl training me just pulled a resident's pants down, sat her on the toilet, came to the kitchen, grabbed pretzels, ate them, went back, put the pants back up on the lady, came back out, ate more pretzels, then fixed the lady a toast. WTF, never once washed her hands. Story 17. I have a lot of surface-level general knowledge, and I usually forget that people don't know as much about the wide array of topics that I do. I have to constantly remind myself that most adults stopped caring about a lot of the world after high school. Story 18. That you could just remove all the zeros from a multiplication question, multiply all the non-zero numbers, then just add the zeros back afterwards, e.g., 234000600 could be done as just 234 first, which is 1404, and then since there are 6 zeros in total from the original two numbers, Just add 6 zeros to the back of 1404. Then you have 14040000000. Very easy. Story 19 that the X in Christmas is the Greek letter chi, short for Christ. It still astounds me that lots of my fellow Americans don't know this. I consider it general knowledge. Story 20 using a large touchscreen. At work we have a 75 digital information wall, really just a big monitor. With tap to begin I've watched people use their entire hand, knuckles, 2 fingers, 1 finger but hold it there etc., all while holding a smartphone. I would instruct, oh it's like using your smartphone. They say no it's not, this one is bigger. Story 21 tell the cops nothing. Tell nurses and EMTs everything. Even if it's illegal, they don't care what drugs you've done. They care about not killing you with anesthetics. They need to know if you're incoherent because you're high drunk or if you're brain damaged. They need to know if you took something and how much so they don't kill you with a weird medication interaction. And they need to know if you're going to end up in withdrawal during your stay so they can treat you appropriately. As a chronically ill person I 100 support lying in the ER to get doctors to believe you, but do not lie about drugs. That includes weed, nicotine, alcohol and hallucinogens. Minors, they're going to do a drug panel if they think something's up. And none of you are as good at lying as you think you are. They will probably tell your parents. But that beats dying of something horrid, painful and preventable. If you will be in genuine danger when your parents find out, tell your nurse doctor EMT that ASAP. As soon as you enter the ER, continuing your life with minimal side effects is your only priority. Everything else can be unfucked later. Story 22 that Washington, D.C. is not a state and it is not a city in Maryland or Virginia. When I told a friend I was moving there she asked me what state it was in. She was teacher so I was flabbergasted she didn't know. A teenage cashier at a store 20 miles from D.C. looked at my D.C. ID and was shocked to learn D.C. had its own driver's license. Story 23 that the U.S. has 50 states. I live in Europe and a huge percent of people are convinced and has 52. My only reason I can think of is that they consider the contiguous states to be 50, then add Hawaii and Alaska to come up with 52. It would be understandable if most people didn't know how many states are in the U.S., but for it to consistently be thought of as 52 is strange to me. Story 24 oil isn't made up of dead dinosaurs. The only reason I can see why people would believe this is that it takes a very long time, millions of years to form, which makes people think of dinosaurs. Story 25 if your birthday is on a Monday, then the next year it will be on a Tuesday, then on a Wednesday and so on with the exception of leap years where it skips a day. Story 26 I'm an actuary. I've spent thousands of hours memorizing and mastering a lot of financial concepts and applied math. Most of the fairly complicated stuff is second nature to me. I forget that most people don't even know these things exist. Story 27 air dryers for your hands in public toilets are just giant bacteria farms. That's why you never see them in hospitals. Washing your hands then using a blow dryer is redundant. Use paper to dry your hands or use sanitizer after using the dryer. Story 28 you don't have to put up with abuse from your parents just because they are your family. When you're an adult you can choose whether or not to have a relationship with them and decide what that looks like to you. They don't own you. I have so many friends, family and coworkers who say but they're my parents, we're family, I have to. No you don't have to, you choose to. Story 29 that pronouns are words meant to function as substitutes for nouns in a conversation to streamline communication, and are not exclusive to queer people. Story 30 there's nothing wrong with being rude to rude people, there's nothing wrong with being intolerant of intolerant people. Being offended by something doesn't make you correct. Story 31 always open public toilets with tissues paper. You don't know if the person before you didn't wash their hands and their unhygienic hands touched the door handle. Wash your hands. Every time you get to work, home, school, college, wash your hands. Story 32 not most people didn't know, but my best friend didn't know there was fresh milk and long shelf life milk. Don't know if it's a thing in the US. Basically, fresh milk is good for 3 weeks and needs to be refrigerated at all times. Long shelf life milk is good for 6 months and does not need to be refrigerated unless opened. We went grocery shopping once and she bought 6 fresh milks 1-liter bottles. When I asked why she said she drinks a lot of milk, a few weeks later she told me they all went bad and spoiled, even though they weren't expired. I asked a few more questions and after she revealed that she put them in the pantry like she always did, it dawned on me that she had no idea, and so I told her about how there's different kinds of milk. She was flabbergasted. That was the first time she's heard this, and apparently went 24 years of her life only drinking long shelf life milk EW. I still tease her about it. Story 33 always get a second medical opinion. Doctors are awesome but still human. I won't get into the amount of times that I, a non-doctor in the medical field with a useful specialty, corrected and changed their orders after calling them and going over their needs versus the test function. Example: arteries are different than veins and have different symptoms when they are compromised. Just get a second opinion. Story 34 on the left-hand side of your steering wheel, at least on our cars in the US, there is this little stick, and if you push it down it tells people you are going left, or merging left, and if you hit it up it tells people you are turning right or merging right. Crazy no one knows about this. Story 35 water flows downhill. 50 states in the USA. Stop signs are not merely suggestions. Do not put your finger in the light socket, it has electricity. I don't see electricity. Put your finger in it. Story 36 if it's raining or snowing or getting dark out, put on your headlights. Most modern cars have an auto feature. Turn it to that, the car is far smarter than you, and no, your daylight running lights are not your headlights or tail lights. If it's raining really hard, don't drive with your hazards on. What's your next move? We have no idea because your hazards are blinking. Story 37. You don't get taxed more when your income moves up a tax bracket. Only the income amount that is in the higher tax bracket is taxed at that percent. The rest of your income is taxed the same as it was. People literally turn down raises because they don't want to go up a tax bracket and pay more tax. It doesn't work like that. Story 38. Cows need to be impregnated and give birth in order to produce milk. Male baby chicks are killed shortly after hatching because they don't produce eggs. Story 39. That the left lane on the highway is used for overpassing. A lot of people think you can stay on it if you drive at one speed under what cops tolerate, or whatever the F they have in mind. Story 40. Telling the difference between wasps and bees. Could spot in an instant before I even started school. Only now, several decades later, did I find out. The most PPL can't. Most scary was a guy working for pest control, who was unable to spot the diff. Pretty critical, because you kill wasps, but always relocate bees. Story 41. You shouldn't pull in front of someone if it will cause them to have to slow down to avoid a crash when driving. Goes for intersections, lane changes, all of it. It should be common sense, and it's in the driving manual you study for the license, but so many people play that stupid game anyway. Story 42. Literally every societal construct. But on a real note, how to behave in a retail store, we need to start making sure all signs are in all caps and bright cherry red. Story 43. The difference between a debit card and a credit card. Did some work in law school with bankruptcy law, and we ran a free clinic where people could ask about their finances and get advice about next steps. When I would point out the interest fees on the credit card statements, I would get blank stares. I didn't buy anything for $39. Yes, I know, that's the interest for the month. Followed up with no, I didn't charge that. I only use this card at 7 to 11. I know financial literacy is lacking in this country, but I swear, even if that improved, people will still choose Slurpees over an emergency fund and being debt-free. Story 44. That private label products, own store name products, are manufactured by well-known brand names companies. Usually they have the same quality, but a much lower price. Story 45. The sheer number of times the Bible contradicts itself. Most people never read the actual book, they listen to a pastor who has the flip randomly to make a point. If you compare the stories that are shared across books, then you'll see lots of difference in dates, people, events, etc. Story 46. When you're grocery shopping, maneuver through the aisles like you would on roads. If you're coming out of an aisle to a T-stop main aisle, look both ways before pulling out. The main aisle is where people are generally walking straight. By immediately pulling from an aisle into the main alley, you're going to hit someone or force people around you to come to a complete halt. I'm sick of always hearing they should put traffic lights up in these aisles. Sir, we all went to driver's ed, as we all should know what to do when at an intersection with no lights. Check for clearance before merging. Story 47. That eggs are not dairy. I have to avoid eating dairy, and reasonably often when I order something with no dairy at a restaurant, the waitstaff will tell me I can't have the dish because it has eggs in it. It's so weird, I guess because they are in the same section at the grocery store. Story 48. Who and Frank is. I worked in a bookstore and would sometimes mention it as a recommendation, and realized that a surprising amount of people had never heard of her or her diary. Story 49. That carrots do nothing to help your eyesight. That was WW2 propaganda intended to cover for the efficiency of Allied night radar, that the right way to throw a Molotov is a sidearm throw, throwing it overarm will just pour burning fuel over you. Story 50. When I read How to Win Friends and Influence People, I felt I already knew all the concepts, and was already practicing them. I don't understand why people need to be told not to criticize others, and instead to praise and be nicer to people. It just feels like common sense to me. But to most people, they don't already know that people will dislike you and not want to be around you if you criticize them. Story 51. Even-numbered interstates in the US go east to west while odd-numbered go north to south. For example, I-90 goes from Seattle to Boston while I-95 goes from Maine to Florida. Story 52. Multi-level marketing companies are unethical. It's widely reported that 99% of MLM sellers lose money. These companies prey on vulnerable and uneducated people, primarily women. These may be stay-at-home moms or people with chronic illness who are just trying to support their families. MLMs encourage sellers to leverage of personal relationships to support their sales and encourage sellers to cut ties and alienate themselves from those who are not supportive. Lastly, MLM distributors are not business owners or boss babes. Business owners have control product development and production as well as company marketing strategies and branding. MLM's distributors have zero control over these business decisions. Overall, MLMs are scummy businesses with shady business goals and practices and should be avoided at all cost. Story 53. Obviously I thought, common knowledge has been lost to people, such as being nice to others, using your indicator when turning or changing lanes, not touching wet paint when a sign says the paint is wet, etc. Story 54. The fact that yeah as in yeah or nay is pronounced like yay, but not spelled like it. When someone uses yeah for yeah, I want to reply with something like, forsooth, verily thou saith. Story 55. Computer algorithms on social media sites. They are not designed to push content you want, it's not trying to figure out what you like, it is simply trying to favorably lead you to higher tier paid advertisement. The more this fact is concealed means the better the computer algorithm is working. Think of it like a breadcrumb trail. Each breadcrumb is a hint to the next video they want you to watch. The longer you follow the trail properly, the more you get ads that YouTube profits off of more. Example, you first sign up for YouTube and watch a video on how to do your hair. The algorithm weighs this as 70 push similar content, 30 push higher payout content. Say you click on one of these 30 higher payout content videos. Let's say it's a video of some guy drilling a hole in his toilet seat. Your algorithm will now weigh 30 hair 70 toilet hole moron. It will keep mathematical weighting every video you search versus every video you actually watch, keeping content as close to what you like, but still leading you to content YouTube will actually make money off of. Simple example 2, you download TikTok. Videos on the letter C are profitable to TikTok. You're watching videos on the letter A, which are not. The algorithm will spam an overwhelming amount of letter C video directly after your letter A video to get you to bite. If you do bite, the computer algorithm will again use mathematical reasoning to keep directing you to letter C videos. Story 56. If a toilet is overflowing, you can turn the pipe at the back to stop more water coming in. It will at least buy you time to solve your problem. Story 57. You have to turn your headlights on when it's raining, even if your state doesn't require it. Hey, race what your gray Nissan Sentra looks like in the rain. Story 58. That it's been public knowledge that Trump is a white supremacist since the 80s. It still floors me that people act like this is something the left-wing media made up in 2016. Story 59. Blonde roast coffee has more caffeine than dark roast coffee. Most people I've spoken to think it's the opposite, and it seems logically so. Dark roast is stronger in flavor, but the caffeine gets cooked out in dark roast. That's why breakfast blends are light roast or medium light roast. More caffeine in the morning. Story 60. Insulin lowers blood sugar, so if a diabetic faints from low blood sugar, dosing them like it's an EpiPen might just kill them. Apparently people don't know that, though I had misconceptions about diabetics into my teen years as well. I thought they couldn't eat sugar at all and was very confused when an acquaintant diabetic always carried tiny sugary candy with him for emergencies. Story 61. When putting a battery in a device like a flashlight or remote, you don't have to look for the or signs. The flat end goes on the spring, always. Story 62. People don't realize how much a billion is. Let's say if you waited for a drink at a restaurant, and you waited 1 million seconds, it would take you 12 days. If you waited 1 billion seconds, it would take you 31 years and 8 months. This means that you can't be a billionaire and gain the money in an ethical way. It's just not possible. Story 63. That using natural gas is a pollutant. When using it in stoves indoors, it creates toxic combustion gases suspected of causing cancer, and the millions of uses for heating and electrical production across the world are causing significant global warming. Story 64. How elections work. Example, it's not illegal to move ballots from one location to another. Also, election laws vary by state, so just because it's not allowed in your state doesn't mean it's illegal in another. Story 65. That most flour is made from wheat. I have celiac disease and have to be gluten-free. So why can't I have that cake, cookie, piece of pizza etc? Because it has wheat in it. Really it does. I thought it was made from flour. Permanent red spot on forehead just got darker. SMH. Story 66. People write a lot as one word, but it is actually 2 words. See here, a lot in a sentence. There are a lot of people who don't know it is 2 words. Story 67. What former and latter mean. I can't tell you how often I use them and just get looked at quizzically. They're such useful words, and I thought everyone used them. Story 68. Feeling very strongly about an opinion, belief, or theory doesn't make it a fact. Also, being louder or resorting to insults in an argument doesn't make you right. Story 69. Fungi aren't plants. Neither are they animals. They're their very own thing. Edit to add they are actually closer related to animals than to plants. They're hardly under-researched and very, very cool. Story 70. Dyscalculia. Dyscalculia is a learning disability that makes it hard to understand, learn, and do general math. I have always struggled with basic math. It takes me longer than it should, and I need paper and pencil and counting on fingers for calculations most people can do mentally in a nanosecond. I don't love it when someone hears this and immediately asks me to do mental calculations to prove my ineptitude. Really, you can't do percents? What's 32 of 75? What part of I can't mentally calculate percents didn't you understand? Story 71. What presidents are on the different denominations of cash? I remember having a conversation at an old job with someone about money, and somehow it came up about a president. I asked if they knew who was on the 5, and they didn't. Then I asked about the 20, and they didn't know either. I thought that was so strange, so I went and asked some other people at work the same questions. Most of the people I asked did not know the answers. This was about 15 years ago, when everyone always used cash. It's just one of those things I thought everyone knew. Story 72. Don't take fever reducer unless it's over like 101102. Otherwise you're just suppressing symptoms, and ITLL keep coming back it up. Take a 1 to 2 days off to sleep, no fever reducer. Recently talked to someone who took ibuprofen every day BC, their fever kept coming back. I'm like, yeah, obviously your fever is there for a reason. Let it do its work, and it'll be over faster. If you're the last person to see someone alive and the first person to find them dead, the police talk to you for a long, long time. Story 73. That Trump is a con artist. I grew up in New York and it was well known he wouldn't pay his bills, stiff his contractors, bully smaller companies with lawsuits etc. It absolutely amazes me that people actually want him to be president. Story 74. If you were to travel straight up in a rocket ship, without going sideways at all, you would fall straight back down. Even if you went as high as the space station, there isn't zero gravity up there. The reason satellites and the space station stay up is that they are traveling sideways very quickly. They are constantly falling downwards, but they go sideways so fast that they keep missing the Earth, so they go round and round. Story 75 in English. Only proper nouns are capitalized. It's aggravating how often I see people apparently capitalizing the important words in a sentence. Did they not teach you in middle school not to do this? Story 76. Dogs are animals. As much as we anthropomorphize them in the USA, at least, they are still animals and will react as animals. No matter how much you love and trust a dog, they should never be left alone with a small child or incapacitated person. Also, if you have a dog, you owe it to them to learn about canine body language and signaling. We are primates and our instinctual body language is very different from that of canids. There is so much room for misunderstanding just based on body language. If you don't have a dog, it's still a good idea to learn the basics and teach them to your kids. It will help make interactions much safer. The Other End of the Leash by Patricia McConnell is a great book for learning about canine signaling. Story 77. I don't think it's most people, at least I hope, but I tutored biology at a community college, and the first chapter was very basic math. It was about percentages, like how to calculate them, and how to convert between percentages and decimals. I was already surprised that so many people didn't understand this at 18. But what really blew my mind was a complete lack of basic background knowledge that I just assumed every adult had. For example, some math problems would be like, Bob worked 76 days a year. What percentage of the year does Bob work? Multiple people didn't know how many days are in a year. But it got even worse, like some people didn't know how many hours in a day, how many seconds in a minute, how many minutes in an hour, etc. Just general knowledge like that blew my mind and completely changed my entire approach to teaching. Story 78. How girls pee. AKA how many holes do girls have? Not sure how to say that without being crude, but it's something I've discussed with a few people, and they had no clue. TBH. One was my 60 years old mom.